Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Ju, the lead transportation analyst with the California Public Utilities Commission. Just a little bit about myself. So I've been with the CPUC for over 20 years and have worked on a wide variety of programs within, oh gosh, like water, telecommunications industry, and now in transportation. So first, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share with you a program that provides Californians with disabilities, including non-foldable wheelchair users, access to on-demand transportation services. I also want to know that I may have some speaker problems, so if you can't hear me, just let me know. Okay, so Adina, if you can share slide two, perfect. You can share slide two, I guess. So before we discuss the Access for All program, for those that aren't familiar with the regulatory landscape in California, let me spend just a brief moment introducing the CPUC to provide a brief overview of who we are and what we do. Okay, next slide. So we are a five-member governor-appointed commission that oversees the state's natural monopoly utility companies that include energy, water, telecommunications, broadband, as well as various forms of transportation, which I'll get into that in a moment. The five commissioners are appointed by the governor for staggered 6-year terms. The CPUC also holds 20 plus voting meetings, which are held annually in San Francisco, Sacramento, or elsewhere across the state. The CPUC staff, such as myself, and I believe my colleague Noah Thorin is also on this call, supports the commission in various roles such as policy, advice, program implementation, and investigation and enforcement. Okay, next slide. So within the CPUC, the Consumer Protection Enforcement Division, which we're part of, oversees the forms of transportation you see here, which includes transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft, autonomous vehicle passenger service, charter party carriers, ferries, and buses. You'll notice that these are all forms of non-municipal for-hire passenger transportation, which the legislature has tasked us with making sure is clean, safe, sustainable, among other things. Okay, next slide. So the CPUC traces its origins to the late 1800s when a commission was created to protect the people of California during the expansion of the railroads. Since then, our regulatory scope and mission has expanded to include broader consumer protections, accessibility, environmental protections, and equity and inclusion. And our team focuses on the on-demand passenger transportation industry. Next slide. So while I am responsible, Noah too, for the Access for All program, we have other analysts on our team that cover transportation network companies in general, autonomous vehicle passenger services, and the TNC Clean Mile Standard. Next slide. So today, I'm actually very excited to talk about a program that I'm proud to be a part of. It's California's first in the nation statewide program to expand on-demand wheelchair accessible vehicle services, or we call as WAVES, to people with disabilities, especially for those who use non-foldable wheelchairs. Next slide. So in general, wheelchair users have largely been unable to utilize transportation network company services like Uber and Lyft due to the lack of wheelchair accessible vehicles available on their platforms. As the statute explains, these accessible vehicles are more expensive to operate and maintain than non-accessible vehicles. So therefore, SB 1376 created this program in 2018 to ensure that on-demand transportation is available to persons with disability, especially for persons using non-folding motorized wheelchairs. And that really is the intent of the legislature, that California be a national leader in the deployment and adoption of on-demand transportation options for persons with disabilities. Next slide. Thank you. So how does the program work? So I'm going to walk you through this diagram and sort of sketch out the program. So on the left is a cartoon image of a man holding a mobile device requesting a trip from the TNC. The TNC collects what is called an access fee in the amount of 10 cents for each TNC trip. The TNC then sends the fees collected to CPUC on a per county and quarterly basis and is deposited into the CPUC's TNC Access for All Fund, also known as the Access Fund. The fees collected is then used to subsidize the cost of providing waves. One method of expanding on-demand waves are TNCs themselves, which is represented by the arrow in the center of the diagram that's pointing to the TNC waves, the first vehicle on the bottom left. TNCs may offset the fees due to the CPUC by the amounts they spend quarterly to improve their own wave services in each county. CPUC approval of these offsets requests allows the TNCs to keep some of the access fee revenues that they collect equal to the amount they invest in wave service in a particular county in a particular quarter, as long as the wave services meets performance requirements set by the CPUC. And then any remaining funds, those that are not claimed by the TNCs in the offset process, are then set aside that can then be distributed to local access providers through county level agencies, also known as local access fund administrators, or what we call as LAFAs, which we currently have 12. And then any counties not covered by a LAFA will be administered by a statewide administrator, which I'll go into that later. Next slide. So to summarize, here are some key features of the Access for All program. As mentioned, this program raises 10 cents for every transportation network company trip taken in California and deposits that money into the Access Fund. This funding incentivizes transportation network companies to invest in on-demand wheelchair transportation in counties across the state. The program also funds county-level government agencies' contracts with access providers in places where TNCs have left money on the table. And thanks to a compensation program element created by the legislature, the proceeding has been supported by robust participation from disability rights advocates such as Disability Rights California, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, and Center for Accessible Technology, just to name a few. Next slide. And to really distill the Access program down, we have core goals consisting of encouraging investment in the program through waves, marketing and partnership, increasing wave availability through California to meet demands, and improving response times to align and move wave performance to standards set by the CPUC. Next slide. So next, I'm going to talk about how we're doing against these goals and some of the successes of the program to date. So since the inception of the program in 2019, we have observed TNC's on-demand wheelchair accessible transportation options in 22 counties, which is an increase from the 16 counties when the program first started. We're aware of almost $79.3 million investment in the services in California by the TNCs like Uber and Lyft, and almost 48 million of which is funding generated directly by this program. This has resulted in approximately 271,400 trips so far across those 22 counties by TNCs since the start of the program in July of 2019. County level agencies in 12 counties have also started efforts to procure additional local access providers, a piece of the program that's currently going into our fifth funding cycle, effective July 1st, which we have awarded a total approximate of 35.7 million collectively for the 4 funding cycles. And we are implementing at least into 2026 when the program is currently set to sunset. Next slide. So looking at the program overall, as you can see in the green, the total number of trips provided each quarter, our TNC partners are on track to soon provide 100,000 wave rides a year. Note that this chart doesn't include rides provided by our access providers, so the numbers are actually a bit higher. As you can see, the same time last year, Uber and Lyft combined provided almost 26,000 wave rides. And if this trend continues, we hope to see rides approaching 30,000 rides a quarter. Next slide. So beyond the numbers, when we've asked for feedback from riders, it's been extremely positive. Riders have reported that this wave service has allowed them and their families to have vibrant life outside their homes. Riders share stories where they would have been stranded at night without a wave, were able to avoid purchasing an expensive private wave, and even save lives on trips to the emergency room. Stories like this grounds us and reminds us of the vital importance of our work and to maintain the Access for All program. So while our primary partners in this effort are Lyft and Uber, we also work closely with 12 LAFAs, each covering a different county across the state, including Contra Costa, Fresno, Los Angeles, Shasta, San Diego, San Francisco, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, Solano, Monterey, and Ventura. I'm also excited to announce that 3 more counties, including Alameda, Sacramento, and San Joaquin, potentially will be added to this list, which will be confirmed at the June 26 Commission voting meeting. We're also very excited to work with our statewide access fund administrator, GCAP, whom we've just awarded earlier this year, and excited to expand on-demand wave services across the state. So both the local access fund administrator, or what I've been referring to as LAFA, and the statewide access fund administrator, also referred to as SAFA, they assist CPUC to expand the on-demand wave services. The LAFAs will administer the program at the local level, while the SAFA will administer in areas not currently served by the LAFAs. Both the LAFAs and SAFAs will contract and obligate access funds to access providers to provide on-demand wave services. So how does this funding how does the funding work for the access fund administrators? So the access funds not invested by the TNCs will be available first to the local access fund administrators. 15% is allocated to the LAFAs for administrative costs in their respective county, and then 85% is allocated to the access providers to provide wave services in those counties. And then any remaining funds not claimed by the local access fund administrators will be allocated to the statewide access fund administrators. They will be eligible for 15% of the overall remaining program budget to support program administration, while the 85% of the remaining funds is allocated to the access providers to provide the wave services. So looking ahead, we know that we have to focus on learning and adjusting to maintain our leadership in the deployment and adoption of on-demand transportation options for persons with disabilities, as envisioned by SB 1376. And we will continue to increase partnerships to help expand on-demand wave services throughout California. We look forward to hearing any feedback that you have for us on how we can improve, expand to meet the needs of even more Californians. And then that concludes the presentation. Just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today, and I can start taking questions.
All right, I see that Warren has a hand.
Yes.
Yes, hello. This is Warren
Hi,
Cushman
Warren.
here. Hi. I want to start by saying that the partnershiping, which you just spoke of, is really important. People with disabilities are facing challenges in this arena all over the state and frankly throughout the country and most likely throughout the world. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of inaccessible vehicles and in all kinds of varieties. And so, as we put waves on the street and we make things more accessible, there are key learnings that have to happen. And can you talk a little bit specifically how you tap into people with disabilities and agencies who serve people with disabilities to facilitate those learnings and also to help guide Uber and Lyft, because they're certainly not that experienced at providing accessible transportation themselves? Thank you.
Great question. So when we first established this program, we had the disability advocates also participate in these proceedings to provide feedback and comments. So the commission has given authority to the local access fund administrators. So the local access fund administrators include MPOs, forgot all the acronyms, metropolitan planning organizations, regional transportation planning agencies, county transportation commissions, as well as transit agencies in their respective counties to be the leaders in marketing and outreach to the disabilities communities within each county, because they know their needs for their own county. So that's kind of how they would reach out to the disability communities in terms of engagement and outreach. For the TNCs, they do the same. They would, I think 2 years ago, maybe last year, they were required to submit an annual outreach plan. And in those plans, which they're available on our website, they are required to do outreach and engagement. And they have a list of these disability communities that they have been reached out to, and trying to form partnerships with them in terms of getting the word out.
Okay. Let's see. I see that Michelle has a hand.
Yeah, Warren's right. The administrators are very important. I have concern. I understand that you're adding Alameda County and 2 other counties to that group, but I'm wondering what outreach have you guys done to make sure that we're covering more of California and more counties throughout the state with administrators to be able to access that funding? Because at least here in Alameda County, those waves are not as available as they are in other counties who have had that administrative factor already for a while. So just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess first and foremost, if you know of a disability community or a contact that you have, please forward that to me and let us know. The way we do it, well, at least for the local access fund administrators, and also the statewide access fund administrators, they will also, I mean, I don't know what types of, like how they would search for these entities, but I'm assuming they do their own, they do their own engagement. So another thing that I do want to add is that we internally have our own outreach, and which we will be tapping into hopefully very soon, to get the word out, because I know that, but it is a struggle for sure, because in prior discussions with the local access fund administrators, one of the things is, how to get the word out. So, a lot of it is really based on word of mouth. So if you know of organizations, please just let me know or let my colleague Noah know. You can pass it on to Davina, and then she'll pass the word to me. But I think yeah, a lot of it is like who you know. So if you know somebody, just please let us know so that we can get the word out. Noah, do you have any? Oh, I was just gonna my pass the baton to Noah to see if he has anything else to add on this.
I do want to add that we've recently recruited a statewide access fund administrator. So our hope is that a lot of the individual outreach to individual counties, where we have to get buy-in from their local agencies to be able to do this. Frankly, in a lot of counties, the funding is pennies on the dollar. It would cost more to administer the money than they would be able to get from us in administrative costs. However, Alameda is not one of those, so we're very excited to have Alameda join us as a local access fund administrator. But as the statewide access fund administrator, they can pull a lot more money and pool things to be able to serve and administer the funding in a much more economical way. Anything you want to add on the SAFA, Anna?
I don't. Thank you.
Is there a follow-up question?
Yeah, I do. More of a statement. I think, thank you for coming today, by the way, both of you. We really appreciate you giving the presentation today. But I'm also wondering, I'm a person with a disability who uses a large power wheelchair. And so, and you're right, it has been mainly about word of mouth about the program, and that in itself for me is a problem, because it's not well known about this service, and at least in Alameda County, it's not a reliable service at this point for us to be able to say, hey, I'm going to call and rely on that Uber ride to come, not only come, but rely on it to get home or to other places at this point, because sometimes the ride is actually denied. So and so I'm just wondering what outreach could be done, not only with our local independent living centers, but other transportation hubs here, at least in my county, that could actually facilitate you getting on the Access Alameda brochure, and so that things like this can be promoted, so that people get the benefits of it, because it's not just our paratransit people who might need this type of service, but those who don't necessarily qualify for the ADA paratransit, who would need to utilize this, and to get the word out, I think, is important. So thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's a great question. I think at the local level, this is where we're going to have to pitch it over to ACTC. We see our role mostly when it comes to sort of the individual counties as mostly just making sure the money gets where it needs to go. And then Alameda CTC will be the one actually doing the on the ground outreach. Anything you want to add on that, Anna?
Not really, but we'll make sure to discuss with the other LAFAs that, well, especially Alameda CTC, that one of the ways is to get, as you mentioned, have the wave on this program on the brochure or any type of marketing materials.
Yeah, no, I think that would be good. And I think that should be said for any county, that, you have decent utilization in parts of the state where it's been implemented. I'm just, trying to see where we can help you guys so that the word of mouth it's more than that. And that you guys get some direct service for people who need it. And I think that, going through the different agencies is great. I think PAPSO, which is our Measure B and BB funding, we had our committee was given this information a few months ago. So, so you're doing it. It's just, I'm just wondering how proactive that the different counties around the state, because it's service for waves is very different from county to county. And that's unfortunate because, like I said, I live in Alameda, so it's very different than if I go into San Francisco and I want to catch a wave. I can probably get one in San Francisco really easily, but I can't rely on that here in Alameda. So, so I just want to at some point make sure that the service is gradually brought up to par in other parts of the state. So thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Do we have any other comments from members of the committee who would like to speak?
Yeah, so Debbie Toth has a hand. Debbie has a hand, and then I have some questions after everybody else. Debbie.
Hi guys, I'm driving. My apologies for being tardy to the party today, but I did want to sort of piggyback on the distribution methods as well as who the key informants are or were or can be. So when I hear we've reached out to the disability community or we had the disability community engaged, I'm curious if you have a broad list of people that you are ensuring are included in that disability community, because accessible to somebody with Alzheimer's is different than accessible to somebody with cerebral palsy, which is different than somebody with autism, which is different than somebody who's deaf or somebody who's blind or somebody who uses a power chair. Like there's a pretty expansive list of folks, and I'm wondering if there's been any measure by which we look to see that we're hearing voices from different parts of the disability community, because it's a very diverse community with a diverse set of needs. That's one. And two, I think in terms of outreach, at an absolute minimum, each county should have the area agency on aging, the independent living, and the developmental disabilities councils engaged, as well as I would say the California Disability Rights California. I think if you hit all of those, you have a much greater chance of ensuring that you're having more broad representation in the disability voice. So that would just be my comment there. But the first question is, are you looking at the breadth of disability when you're saying you've engaged that community? Thank you.
Before we answer, do you mind repeating that list again of the agencies? It was the Council on Aging, the Independent Living Center.
Area agencies on aging. Those are called AAAs, area agencies on aging. So there are 33 throughout the state of California. Some are just one county and some are multiple counties. So Contra Costa is one county, Alameda is one county, San Francisco is one county, but Napa and Solano is collapsed under one area agency on aging. And some of the more rural areas, you'll see 5 counties in one area agency on aging, but you can find the list of them on the California Department of Aging's website. So I would also be contacting the California Department of Aging and the California Department of Rehab, as a matter of fact. The other ones I said were the independent living centers. I believe there's one in each county, at least one in each county in the state of California, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And then I believe most counties have developmental disabilities councils. I would reach out to those. I would reach out to the regional centers. There are, I think, 21 throughout the state that serve people with developmental disabilities. But that's at a minimum where it would start. And I also said Disability Rights California.
Thank you. I appreciate listing that list again. I appreciate it. Want to make sure I got it.
No problem.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're writing it all down.
All right. And Debbie did ask about, the making the really important point about the different need of people with different disabilities. This presentation has called out the wheelchair accessible vehicles in particular. Does the SB 1376 focus specifically on wheelchair vehicles, or does it have a broader mandate of supporting people with a broader array of disabilities?
For this, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Zoom.
So,
you know how to.
So for this program, it's really to expand on-demand wheelchair accessible vehicle services. However, we're not limited to people to transport passengers with just wheelchairs, non-foldable wheelchairs. So we're not restricting like different types of disability. However, we are just our focus is to expand on the wheelchairs vehicles.
Okay. Do you like in Michelle's report that it is, a lot harder to get a wheelchair accessible vehicle so far in Alameda County than in San Francisco? The page in the slide deck that showed the outcomes have showed the number of trips, but it did not show. Do you do any research by geography, potentially working with some of the partners to assess not only how many rides, but how many people tried to get rides and what's the, rides completed versus rides denied?
Yes. This is where I come in because I'm our data representative or analyst mostly. First off, this breaks down into a couple different sections here. If the TNCs if Uber and Lyft are providing any services and want funding for it, they are required to meet certain service standards, which include the number of trip completion rates. So if 100 people are requesting trips, we require, I believe it's between 60 and 75. It's a sliding scale. People get to where they need to go within a reasonable amount of time. We also have response time mandates, which are on a county by county basis from anywhere between, I believe, 15 and 30 minutes and they have to meet these certain benchmarks to get funding. The local access fund administrators don't have, it's all set out in our commission decisions, Debbie. I don't have those numbers specifically in front of me, and I don't know if that's particularly what we want to get into. I don't know when you all, how long you all go today, but I'm afraid I've got a hard out at 5.
We stop on the hour, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we also have a annual benchmark report that details the progress and status of the program every year. That's posted on our website. I can post a link in chat when I get a chance. And yes, we do analysis on a geographic level. Some of that data is already up in the report right now. We're also exploring ways to make that data more accessible besides just the Excel sheets that we get reported to us. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Debbie.
I don't think I was just asking about reasonable like he said, in reasonable times. I think there was a different question there, but I asked about the reasonableness of times because paratransit uses that as a measure, but they don't define what reasonable time is. So that's why I was asking the question, because we have people on paratransit trips where their trip from origination to destination is 7 miles and they can spend 3 hours on paratransit. And that's considered reasonable because they didn't define reasonable in their paratransit plan that is approved. So it is a sticking point for me. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And
yeah.
so do these, different question, do these rules also apply to the emerging autonomous vehicles like the Waymo type services?
Afraid not. Those are through some quirks of the legal and permitting process. Those are permitted under a different permit, which does not apply to Waymo's. Yeah, they're
Is that
two
something that
different
would
buckets.
require a different law to complement SB 1376?
That's correct.
Okay.
And also, speaking of laws, just want to bring everyone's attention to the fact that there is a bill making its way through the assembly right now, 1532, AB 1532, which is scheduled for an appropriations hearing tomorrow. So it would renew it for another 5 years. So.
Oh, okay. Can you say what that bill number is again?
That is AB 1532. I will also post a link in the chat.
Okay. And Michelle, go ahead. And I have another question. But
Okay, so, Adina, go ahead and ask your question. This will be the last question, and then we're gonna go ahead and move on. So thank you.
okay. And so I know that in the Bay Area, they had the experience that there was money that was coming in and then not going out because there were counties that did not on their own have the ability to distribute the money. And it sounds like some of that is being addressed by the statewide body. Does your report include the to date, how much money has been collected versus has been dispersed?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want a total summary on that?
If it is in the, if you have it to hand, sure. And if you're saying it's in the report and you can find it on page 56, we can also look it up and share it out.
Of course. I have it. So we have through the TNCs, we have about 73 million expended. That's just total overall. And I believe still available at the statewide total is about unspent by TNC or LAFA is about 22 million by my count.
Okay. Yeah, so Anna and Noah, thank you so much for coming and giving this presentation. That was a topic that many people have been asking for quite a while.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us.